Americans, and unfortunately Australians as well, are drowning in new car debt. Guys, I just had a conversation with one of my friends about new car debt. Steve, g'day mate. We're talking about a lot of people who are getting into car loans and they can't really afford them. And then they're complaining about the cost of living. They're under a lot of stress. They're complaining that the cost of milk is expensive, even though it's about $3 here in Australia, about $2 for 2 litres. And the reason they're saying some of this stuff, I think, is because there's just so much stress on them. Everyday living costs are so low. They don't have solar for some reason, so their electricity costs are really high. I understand this scenario, but putting yourself in this situation where you have so much debt, you're paying, interest rates on home loans have risen substantially. A lot of fixed interest loans have expired. Now they're on a variable rate, which is very, very expensive. And this means that many people are drowning in debt. In the United States, Americans are drowning in new car debt. Loans are now averaging 70 months, and many of those loans are actually underwater, meaning the value of the loan is higher than the value of the car. So people buy these cars, right? And literally hundreds of thousands, millions in fact, have bought a car, paying the loan off. Then they look at the value, the actual value of their car, it's worth less than the loan. Hello, my friends. Welcome to the channel. I'm Sam Evans. You're watching the Electric Viking. It's great to see you. If you have solar on your roof and you can charge your EV, then maybe whether or not the loan is worth more than the value of the car doesn't matter so much, because you're not having to go and pay for gas all the time. You've got to keep your car long term. The operating costs are extremely low. But if you're having to pay off this big car debt and this big home loan debt, plus you're having to pay for gas, pay for petrol, diesel, that's really going to hurt you. Now, apparently, payments on loans reached an all-time high in the second quarter of 2024. New vehicle buyers are now taking out massive loans. On average, new vehicle buyers are taking out loans for 70 months. Average new vehicle APRs have increased to 7.3% as well. Down payments for new vehicles have slightly decreased. A new study has revealed that many, in fact, hundreds of thousands of new vehicle buyers in the United States are being stretched to their absolute financial limits. This kind of sounds like subprime mortgages. They're signing up for longer loan terms and higher interest rates. That's a very worrying sign. Longer loan terms, higher interest rates, and I know home loan mortgage rates have risen, not just in Australia, but also in America. It's going to put immense pressure on a lot of people. During the second quarter of 2024, the average new vehicle APR jumped from 7.1% to 7.3%. That marks the sixth consecutive quarter that APRs have been above the 7% mark. In addition, many buyers are taking on really, really long loan terms to mitigate rising prices, with the average new vehicle loan term in Q2 being 70 months. This is the highest it's been in history. Honestly, guys, I just watched the movie The Big Short. It just reminds me of that. It's like not subprime home loans, subprime car loans. That's what it appears like. It appears like the automotive industry is like maybe flying under the radar a little bit, because it's not a home loan. It's not a massive loan. It's not a $500,000 loan or $1 million loan. It's smaller than that. But that doesn't mean that that's a good thing. Now, keep in mind, there are some companies that are very, very exposed to this. The most exposed company to this in America is Ford. The Ford Motor Company has more debt when it comes to loaning to these consumers than any other company in America. In fact, any other company in the world. Now, in good times, that's great. I mean, in good times, you're like, hey, great. We have all this debt, but it's good debt because it's loan, it's mortgage debt. We've basically got all these customers who are paying off their car loans to us, and we're making all this money. But considering the fact that defaults have hit highs, as in record highs over the past 6 months, that's not so good, because that means that some of these debts are just bad debt that is never going to be paid. Basically, Ford will be just re-owning these cars, taking them back off consumers. Then they have a used car, and they've got to basically take over that debt as well. An analysis from Edmunds reveals the average monthly payment reached an all-time high in Q2 of 2024 of $740, up $735 from the first quarter and $733 last year. So the truth is, average payments haven't increased all that much. They're not too bad, but still $740 a month for a lot of people. That's American dollars, by the way, US dollars. That's still a lot of money. I mean, you're still looking at $180 US dollars a week. That's actually huge. This rise can be partly explained by the fact that average new vehicle down payments have dropped to $6,500. In other words, manufacturers are taking very small down payments for pretty sizable loans. The smallest loans are getting bigger, interest rates are growing, and down payments are decreasing. That's a recipe for disaster. A growing number of buyers are taking on new vehicle loans with monthly payments exceeding $1,000 US dollars. 18% of new vehicle loans exceeded $1,000, nearly the same as the all-time high from Q4 of 2023 of 18%. 18% of buyers are paying more than $1,000 US dollars every month. Now, Australians, for context, that'd be like you guys paying $1,500 a month on your car loan. That's astronomical. Things aren't much better for used car buyers, which is kind of crazy considering you can get, say, a used Tesla Model Y long range for $25,000 US dollars. In Q2 2024, the average term for a used car in the US was 70 months with an average monthly payment of $552 US dollars on a used car. Yeah, the APR on used vehicles swelled from 11% last year to 11.5% this year, with an average amount of $28,000 being financed on a used car. So honestly, if the average amount being financed on a used car is $28,000, down payments must be very, very small. If there's a sliver of good news for buyers, it's CDK Global, a car dealership software company hit by a cyber attack last month, is getting closer to bringing impacted dealers back online. Now, I don't know how that's really that relevant, but anyway, apparently that'll help. High interest rates continue to be a heavy drag on new vehicle sales growth in the second quarter, said Edmunds, head of Insights, Jessica Caldwell. In theory, improved inventory and growing incentives should paint a more consumer-friendly picture of the market, but the reality is most Americans can't buy their cars with cash, and increased borrowing costs continue to be a big roadblock when buying a new vehicle. Now, I should point out, guys, Tesla just revealed 2% finance to buy a Model Y or a Model 3. That's a pretty good deal, but it shows you there's enormous competition in the car market, and that extends to the loan market for cars. What that means, though, is that a lot of consumers, a lot of car manufacturers or car dealerships, they're actually taking $0 down payments from people who probably should not have a car loan in the first place.